Have you ever been ghosted?
What are you talking about, Jordan?
Well, we're going to get into that later. But for right now, I'm Jordan Harrison.
And I'm John Harrison.
And this is Money Unwrapped. So today, we are talking about an exciting topic, ghosting. Just kidding. We're talking about budgeting and cash flow and how we're going to help you keep your money from ghosting you. Budgeting is for everyone, and this episode is supposed to be accessible and made to meet everyone at their own level and pace. And one of the main things that we really want to hone in on is that where you start doesn't have to be where you finish. You don't have to be where you want to be right now. You can't improve what you're unwilling to measure. And the first step towards financial confidence is having the courage to look at where you are today. But budgeting isn't just about restriction. It's about awareness. Many people avoid looking at their finances for the same reason they avoid stepping on the scale after a season of overindulgence. They're just truly afraid of what they're going to find. But avoiding the numbers doesn't change them. Understanding where you are today is the first step towards getting to where you want to be tomorrow. The goal of this episode is to help our listeners remove the fear, shame, and guilt often associated with budgeting, and instead view it as a tool for clarity, confidence, and control. Dad, have you ever avoided checking your bank account because you were just afraid of what you would see?
Absolutely. I mean, when I was in college, I used to scrape the floors for quarters because I didn't have any money in my checking account so that I could go Taco Bell.
Oh my gosh.
Because that was back in the day when you could afford Taco Bell.
Yeah, seriously. Where are the dollar menus? They're gone.
They're history.
Did you ever find quarters, though?
Oh, I would find quarters and nickels and dimes.
Wow. Oh my
Just
gosh.
enough to get that bean burrito.
Well, I think that deep down, we all know what our number's going to say. We all know that the bank account's going to be lower than we want it to be, but seeing it is what makes it feel real. But the whole thing is that when we avoid the number, it still doesn't change. $1,000 doesn't magically appear in your account after that.
Not unless you call Dad and say, "Hey, can I borrow $1,000?"
Hey, I have not done that yet.
No.
Keyword yet.
You haven't.
But I think that the core of this episode is that looking at the number is where the change begins. Because how can you change something if you have no idea what it is? You need awareness so that you can gain confidence and clarity in your financial decisions.
Right. You need to measure where you're at. And the only way you can do that is, to your point, if you know where your starting point is and you measure it, and then you got clarity wrapped around your measurement.
Well, I think that we should start by defining a few terms. And the first one I really want to talk about is cash flow. I feel like we hear this term a lot, but most people don't actually understand what it is. So cash flow is simply the movement of money in and out of your life. So money coming in is income and money going out is expenses. So when you have more money that comes in than goes out, you have a positive cash flow. We love that. But when you have more money that goes out than comes in, you have a negative cash flow. We don't like that very much.
No, we do not. I remember the first time you got your first paycheck and they had told you what your salary was.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget, you called me and you're like, "Oh my God, they're not paying me what they're supposed to be paying me." I'm like, "What are you talking about, Jordan?" And then we went through your paycheck and I was like, "Well, remember, they got to take out taxes. They got to take out your insurance." And you were like flabbergasted.
Oh, I was in disbelief. I was like, there's no way I'm making this little money. There is no way. Oh my gosh.
So to your point, your little cash flow just from your paycheck had already started to go out.
Seriously.
Jordan, many people assume income is the most important financial metric. They just think about money coming in. They don't think about the money going out.
Definitely. I mean, I think the saying, "mo money, mo problems," you always say is probably accurate.
That is 100% accurate. I remember I was a baby advisor. This is back in 1999, and I had a client, and he was a successful business person, and he owned a skating rink in addition to a bunch of real estate in Independence. And I remember because we were tight, we would go out and have lunch and stuff. And I remember him telling me, John, the more money you make, the more money you'll spend.
No.
And I was like, in my baby advisor mind, I was like, Bill, no. If I can just get to X, I'm golden. But, that was very wise advice because he was 100% correct. As you made more money, all of a sudden, magically more expenses occurred.
Oh my gosh. I mean, just in my experience, when I was working retail versus now, I feel like I'm in an equally good financial position, even though my income has gone up. And I think it just speaks to the whole idea that someone earning, for example, $70,000 with a super strong cash flow can be in a much healthier financial position than someone who's earning, let's say, $300,000, but they spend every single dollar that they make.
Exactly. I mean, if your net worth is your financial weight, your cash flow is basically your blood pressure.
Oh, wow.
It can be high, which means you're going to spend a lot unless you're super disciplined, or it could be low, and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to charge up my credit card.
Oh, yeah. We know all about that. But I think that what you're talking about with cash flow is super important because, like we've already touched on in this episode, understanding what's happening to the money that you already are making is the most important thing, and to understand where your money is going, where it's flowing to. And I feel like before you can build an emergency fund or pay down debt or invest for retirement, you first have to understand where your money is going, because without that awareness, how are you going to ever control it?
It's funny you said that. So one of your classmates from when you were at kindergarten, her dad and mom have been clients of ours since basically you guys were in kindergarten. And she just got her first big girl job. She's an architect and she moved to LA. And so her dad was saying to me, we really need to teach her about cash flow because even though she's going to be making more money, she's living in LA, so it's going to be way more expensive. So when you get your first paycheck, you need to sit down and go, okay, my gross was $7,000. We're not sure 100% what her income is, but we're using this as an example. So she's got $7,000. Let's just say between her federal tax, all her little taxes, that $7,000 now goes to $5,500. That's not $5,500 that she can spend because she's going to have cost of insurance, right? And she's young like you. She's 25. So her insurance probably isn't going to be that expensive. So let's just, for the sake of argument, her insurance is $150. Now all of a sudden, her $5,500 has gone down to $5,350. Well, there's a rule of thumb that you want to pay yourself first. So you want to take 10% of that number and build an emergency fund and invest for retirement. And there's a great resource that I would have everybody read. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon. That is a great book, especially for people that are in your age bracket who are just getting started, So if she takes 10%, let's say she does 5% in her 401k, and then she takes the other 5% and builds an emergency fund. Now she's down to, let's call it $4,800. So everything else that she needs to do, that is her true cash flow, the $4,800.
But that doesn't include rent, groceries,
Correct.
Utilities,
right.
A car payment, for example. I don't know if she has a car or if she's going to.
She has a car, but she's debt-free and doesn't have a car payment.
Oh, well, that's nice.
So, the thing is, she's got $4,800, right? Well, if she said, you know what, I don't really want an emergency fund. I don't really want to invest for my retirement right now because I need that cash. What is the true cost to her by not doing that?
I don't even want to know.
Well, if you look at the rule of 72, you take whatever the rate of return is and you divide that by 72, it shows you how quickly your money's going to double. So in her case, let's say she gets an 8% rate of return. You divide that by 72. That means every 9 years her money's going to double. So at a $70,000 income, if she pays herself first, invests $7,000 a year, in 9 years, that $7,000 is worth $14,000. And the nice thing too is when it's coming out of your paycheck, like for your 401k, investing for retirement, you get a match from the company. So as you know, we've told all of our clients, do at least to the match. So if the match is 5%, you contribute 5%, and really what you're contributing is 10%.
Right.
It makes all kinds of sense for her to pay herself first. She's young, and then she can take that other 5% and build an emergency fund so that if she does want to buy a house sometime, or if she gets into a situation where she needs to pull money, she can pull it out of that emergency fund.
Yeah, I mean, everything that you're saying makes such logical sense, but I think the most important thing is that budgeting isn't a math problem. It's emotional.
Absolutely.
She's in this new environment. She's in LA where, there are lots of wealthy people. I mean, there's lots of wealthy people everywhere, but in LA specifically, you're in this culture of abundance and overabundance, right? And overspending.
Well, and you're in a culture where everybody is trying to keep up with the Kardashians.
I thought you were going to say Joneses, but
no, they want to keep up with the Kardashians.
Right. But, we have to address that this is an emotional thing for people because people don't want to budget because they're scared of what they're going to find. They're scared that there's going to be a skeleton in the closet of their financial habits that they're not ready to address yet.
It's interesting you said that because we're going to have a podcast here pretty soon where we're going to interview a individual who we've been working with for the last 10 years. And this individual got his first big boy job, and he was very disciplined about being aware, to your point, of where his money was going. And so he was systematically saving through his 401k and through his Roth IRA and then through an investment account that we've helped him with. And he just turned 34. Now this client has options because he has exponentially more than what he had at 23. And as we've talked about with all of our clients, all money does is give you options so that you have the freedom, the flexibility, and the control to kind of decide what you want to do. And so this individual now, he can really take his time to decide, hey, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life, instead of going, all right, I got to find a job right now.
Right. There's no time rush, which is such a privilege that many, many people don't have. But I think that it's interesting because I think a lot of people believe that budgeting is only for people who have money. And I almost fear that the opposite is true because money does give you choices, but also when you have limited money, you also have choices. So a friend of ours actually shared a story about her grandmother buying donuts instead of paying the water bill, which I thought was such an interesting representation of a human choice. That's immediate gratification of seeing her grandchildren happy over this box of donuts. And, her dollar or whatever it was back then, that wouldn't pay the whole water bill. But it did buy a whole box of donuts for her kids, for her grandkids. And she almost got to see her money work for her. And I just truly feel like that's such an emotional decision that I almost totally agree with. Obviously, it's hard logically because a lot of people would say, oh, we'll just put that dollar towards the water bill, right, to be responsible. But also it's like we are human and we do want to enjoy our lives and we do want to see what our money does for us. Honestly, when resources are scarce, people often prioritize comfort, joy, relief in the moment because the larger financial problems feel impossible.
You know what? I remember you were probably 8 years old, maybe 9 or 10. I was doing a financial literacy class. And to your point, they were all saying, well, we have limited resources. Yeah. And I said, okay. I said, let me ask you a question. How many of you guys smoke? And about 90% of the hands went up. I said, how much is a pack of cigarettes? And they're like, $5 a pack. Okay. How many packs are you smoking a week? 3. Okay, so that's $15 a week, right? How many weeks are in a year? 52. So what is 15 times 52? It's 520 plus 250 is 770 plus 10. It's $780 a year that you're spending on cigarettes. But yet you're telling me that you can't save money because you don't have any money. So what it really boils down to is everybody has priorities and what they really are willing to spend money on. So when you're looking at your budget, and to your point, people think they're too poor to budget or they don't have enough money.
Right.
If they really were honest with themselves and they looked through their budget, they could find money. Now, I'm not saying they're going to find tens of thousands of dollars, but in that particular case, if they just cut their intake of cigarettes by half, right? Then they have $390. If they put it in an investment account and it grew at 8%, obviously in 9 years, that $390 is now $780. So I used to joke with them and they all got it. So that $5 pack of cigarettes is really, every year, it's going to cost you essentially $1,560.
Wow.
And so some of them were like, oh, we need to cut it down. But, you know, some of them were, to your point, they're like, it doesn't matter. I don't have any money. Even if I'm spending it on the cigarettes, it don't matter.
Well, it's just awareness.
Right.
You know, your budget isn't supposed to exist to make you feel bad about your choices. And for example, that pack of cigarettes, it's not to say if you're a smoker, never smoke again.
No.
It exists so that you can help make future choices with intention. And you know what goes behind that pack of cigarettes, or in modern day, people like to say the Starbucks,
Yep.
you know, the $7 a day Starbucks.
Yep.
I'm so sick of that example, but
It's
there
very
is
relevant. And you know what? The truth of the matter is, if you just exact a little bit of discipline now, it gives you all kinds of freedom, all kinds of flexibility, and all kinds of control. Because you know, there's a saying, people don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. And you don't want to get to some crisis, right, where your water heater goes out and you don't have the money to pay for it because it was more important to go smoke a pack of cigarettes.
Yeah. No, I hear that.
And I know it's tough love, and we've all made mistakes. I mean, everybody makes mistakes, and what we're just trying to do is kind of guide people so that they can realize maybe they won't make some of the mistakes that we've made.
Yeah, I mean, being 25 and, you know, living
Are
in
you 25?
Hey now.
I thought
just turned.
Quarter century, baby.
I know everyone's saying it's your quarter life crisis, which should not be a thing. Okay. There's just midlife crisis.
There are no crises. It's all in your mind.
But, you know, as someone who is young and who lives in a big city, I live in DC, just like LA, there is a lot of that keeping up with people and having emotional spending. So when we have a rough day, you know, all I want to do is lay in bed and order takeout. Or, you know, DC has great malls. Go to the mall because there's a graduation or a wedding and I need an outfit for it. And I just think that it's important to recognize these things and these human experiences because we aren't robots. You know, I could definitely be tighter in my budget and I could definitely cut out that coffee from Tate that I have maybe once a week for that $8. But to me, it's not worth it because, like you said, I'm choosing to prioritize something else. So I just think that with this episode, we really want to say that we recognize that these are human choices and that budgeting is a balance act. We're not saying, you know, quit going to Tate, quit smoking your cigarettes. I mean, we all know the health consequences with cigarettes.
So what would you say is your biggest challenge, yours, from a budgeting standpoint, because when you were in college, you were on a budget and you were on a pretty strict budget and you did fantastic. So what would you say now that you're 25, you're in the real world, you're making money, you're living on your own and doing a great job? What would you say is your biggest challenge?
Well, I would say the biggest difference with budgeting in college versus budgeting out of college that I have noticed is that when you're in college, you kind of have a strict schedule that you have to follow. You have to go to, I mean, you don't have to go to class, but you should go to class. And you have like, okay, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., I'm going to class. And then for me, from 5 to 10:30, I was working.
Right.
So for me, there wasn't a ton of free time where I could be like, okay, I can go to the mall. I can get dinner with my friends. I didn't have that free time.
I'm glad you brought that up because I remember when I was finishing college, and it took me some time to finish college because I had to pay for it myself. I technically didn't get my degree till I was 30. I was working that last year of finishing college, 80 hours a week.
Jeez.
I was working 40 hours in the kitchen, and then I was working 40 hours behind the bar or waiting tables. And what's very interesting about what you just said, and it's so true, is when I look back on that time, that's when I started actually investing. I was investing like $600 a month into a mutual fund because I was working so much that I basically would work. I would eat at the restaurant, so I didn't have to pay for any food. I would come home, go to sleep, and then I had scheduled my class schedule so that I had class one semester Tuesday and Thursday, and then the next semester was like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So I kind of had my schedule for class, but I wasn't spending a ton of money because I was working so much and my schedule was so packed.
I mean, I will even say that my transition from a very strict 9 to 5:30 to now being in a more flexible role where, some days I start at 9:30, some days I start at 7, some days I start at 10:30, and then some weekends I work. So my schedule is way more fluid. And I will say that even when I was working that strict 9 to 5:30, I had less free time as well. So I noticed that my spending was different because also I would go straight from work to the gym, which I paid for. And then straight from that, I would eat dinner at home and go to bed because that was basically my whole day. And then
Monday through Friday.
Right. And then my weekends were my socialization time, which would be obviously where I spent more money. But now, because we're older and because we're in that phase of life where most people are progressing in their career, they're gaining more free time, they're gaining more money because they're getting raises or bonuses. I will say that me and everyone around me is starting to make more money and have more free time. So that makes us want to go out and spend.
Yep.
Budgeting is just incredibly hard. And I don't want anyone listening to feel guilt or shame, like we've mentioned, about not being able to get a handle on it because I've experienced that. It's hard.
So how could we make budgeting more fun for people or a game, so to speak, so that they don't internalize the guilt and the shame of just blowing money?
I mean, there's definitely some methods that I want us to get into on how we can help people budget better. And I just think that your environment and who you surround yourself with and their spending habits definitely affect you. Like I've even noticed with my friends since we go on a family trip every year and you let me bring someone, which is so nice. Usually I bring someone, but then that kind of blows up their budget because now they have to pay for airfare and it's that lifestyle inflation that I just feel it's such a difficult thing. But when you were talking about how can we make it more fun, I try to restructure my brain into thinking that, okay, this $500 that I'm putting away, I'm proud of myself for putting away. And you have to reframe your mindset on this is, like you said, this is me paying myself. This is me investing in my future. This is me making a conscious decision that that dress or that dinner out or that beach trip is not worth my future peace of mind when it comes to my financial situation.
When I say pay yourself first, if you're working for a corporation that has a 401k, take whatever their match is and you do the exact same. So in the case that we used earlier, because depending on whether it's the traditional 401k or whether it's the Roth 401k, which we can get into that later, there is a tax deduction and it comes out pre-tax. So if she does 5%, that's $350. But that's $350 that A, she's putting away, so she's paying herself first. Mm-hmm. But B, she gets a huge tax benefit from that because that's as if she did not make that income. It comes off the top. So that's one way to pay yourself first. The second way to pay yourself first is once you see what your bottom line is, let's say that in her particular case, after all the deductions from her paycheck, her bottom line is $5,000. Mm-hmm. If she hasn't contributed to her 401k, she takes 10% of that after-tax money and she puts it in an emergency fund or into an investment account. So you just want to make sure that you pay yourself first. And what I have found in all my years of being an advisor, that those automatic deductions, people don't realize that it's coming out.
Right. They don't even think of it as income almost.
No. So like I've set up 3 different charities that we contribute to, and that money comes out automatically. I don't even feel it or think about it.
Right. I think that was one of the things with switching from my 9 to 5:30 to our company, which is that none of those really come out automatically anymore.
Nope.
And so, to be honest, that hurt me a little bit because I thought, oh, I'm making X when in reality I should be making Y so that I can put stuff off. So it makes me think right now that we should set up some automatic deductions for me.
Absolutely. And I even sometimes struggle with it. So I do think that whatever kind of, I'm going to call it game, you can play with your brain so that money gets diverted is always great.
Well, a method of budgeting that I've seen trending online is called the envelope system. Have you heard of this?
Oh, yeah. That's from your grandparents' era.
Well, it's kind of resurfacing. I've seen people online where they make these beautiful binders that have a bunch of envelopes in them, and each envelope has a new title. So it's like house, groceries, nails, for example, and they literally stuff envelopes with cash. How do you feel about that?
I think whatever works for you, you should do. Because one size doesn't fit all. How I budget is probably much different than how you budget, and how I look at it in the games I play with myself are different than probably how you do it.
Right. And I mean, for us specifically, it's like we're in very different phases of life. We're in very different age brackets. We also have very different.
What are you talking about, age bracket?
Hey now.
My chronological age is 25.
Oh my gosh. Well, then I wouldn't exist at this exact moment.
But my biological age is higher.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. But, I think that it's just so interesting how we're in such different phases of life. We have such different interests that you, for example, might be like, okay, I'm not going out with my friends anymore. We're not going to the bar. I mean, maybe you are, but
no.
But for me, it's like, okay, I need to budget X number of dollars because I know that this will happen every weekend or something like that. So I just think it's also important to recognize what phase of life you're in and kind of where your priorities lie, like we've talked about this whole time. One type of budgeting that I've also heard about is the 50-30-20 rule.
Yep. And you take whatever your after-tax money is, 50% of that goes to your needs, i.e. your rent, your food, etc. 30% of it goes to your wants, and then your other 20%, 10% goes to your savings or retirement, and 10% goes to your debt repayment. But you've brought up a very interesting point about where you're at in life. And I know you work very hard on making sure you stay to your budget, but talk about those things that are what I would call budget busters, because you were talking about this the other day when you and I were going through your budget for your 25th birthday.
Yeah, what a great birthday gift, going through my budget. It was torture, I'm not going to lie.
But talk about your budget busters that specifically because of the time of your life have happened.
I mean, I think that just the time of life we're all in right now, this phase of the world, subscriptions are a huge one. Just off the top of my head, we have Apple Music or Spotify if you're a Spotify user.
Love my Apple Music. That's not going away.
No. Then we have, HBO, Hulu, ESPN, Disney, Netflix, Peacock. There's tons. And then for me, there's also...
Whoever said cutting the cord was cheaper, that was a lie.
Oh, yeah. It was all a scam.
It was all a scam because it is not... I mean, I think back in the day, and we haven't had cable for a long time, but I think our cable bill was like $150, maybe $179, and that included the internet. Well, if I add up like Sling, Netflix,
yeah,
HBO Max, Disney, ESPN, darn Fox One because of the World Cup, all of a sudden you're way above what you were paying when you were had a cable.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just my internet each month is $79.99. And that's not including any of my subscriptions. And also, the new thing is that there's other subscriptions besides just entertainment. So for me, I subscribe to a clothing service where I get 6 items a month, and it's $103. And then also...
But that's actually a good budgeting thing.
Well, that's why I did it.
Because instead of you going out in spending probably multiples of the $103 a month, you're getting 6 items that you can mix and match with what you currently already have.
So, that's why I did it. And then I was looking at my budget and I realized, on months when I'm gone and I'm out of town and I wouldn't be shopping anyways, I'm still spending $103. So, for example, for my birthday, I ordered 6 dresses. And I realized, for that one night, I spent $103 on that dress to wear it once, to not even keep it in my closet. And the dress's retail was $260. So I was like, okay, well, in this instance, this was not worth it. So I think you have to be strategic with those. And I think that's the subscription creep where you're not fully using your subscriptions. So actually, CNET says that on average, people spend $17 a month or $204 a year on unused subscriptions. So we're not even talking about subscriptions that you use and that are worth it to you. And Gen Z is even higher at $23 a month, which is $276 a year. I mean, I would love to see the numbers on us, what our unused subscriptions are, because I fear they're very high.
Yes. And as we talked about, that's why, I do Orange Theory. And because of my schedule and my travel, sometimes I don't get the number of classes that I would like. So I've never done the subscription model with Orange Theory because of that exact reason. I do the class pack because that way I know I'm going to use them, but I don't have that subscription creep.
And see, you were really smart with that. I remember when we had that conversation and you were saying, because I looked at that and it looks more expensive, but it's actually not, because then I signed a 12-month BOGO deal on a gym, which I love my gym, but it's only for that one location. So since I travel about 3 weeks out of the month, I'm basically wasting $209 a month, or it's $209 a month for 3 classes.
Right.
Which is just ridiculous, but I'm locked in for a year, so that's okay. But I think one of the other things is that lifestyle inflation that we've been hinting to. As your income rises, your spending rises too. And you want that nicer apartment, the nicer car, you're going out more. And just like we said, there's more about that phase of life with graduations and weddings and things that you want to spend money on because they're once in a lifetime things. How many times is my best friend going to get married? Okay, well, since I'm maid of honor, I'm going to be big baller and I'm going to go spend all this money on her because that's what I want to do. But it's hard. And we even had a friend of ours say that when her best friend was getting married, she actually cashed out her 401k, which I don't blame her for, because I think if I was in that financial position and my 401k was the only way that I could buy that plane ticket to go to my best friend's wedding, it's that human choice once again.
But had she been disciplined and paid herself first, she wouldn't have had to cash in her 401k.
Hey, we don't know. Okay.
No, but I think a lot of this comes down to how do you make it fun, but also you need to have discipline.
I mean, I think discipline is the key because...
But you got to make it fun because, to your point, if it's just all about discipline, and maybe discipline's not the word, maybe it's commitment. You're committed because discipline will come and go.
Yeah.
But commitment is a different level.
Right.
You're committed to, okay, I'm going to save 10% because I'm going to pay myself first.
Through the good and through the bad.
Through the ups, through the downs. Because the one thing that is true is over time, and Charlie Munger said this, the power of compounding interest, people can't even comprehend it. It's like a godsend, because if you put $1,000 away in a year, again, going back to the rule of 72, if you get an 8% rate of return in 9 years, that's now $2,000. In 18 years, it's $4,000. In 27 years, it's $8,000. And people will go, oh, that's a long time. But trust me, as somebody who's now seasoned, it goes like that. I mean, I still remember the day you were born and I was the first one to hold you. And now here we are, you're 25. And that was like in the blink of an eye. Yeah. So I think to save, you got to have commitment and you also have to have some discipline, because to your point, lifestyle inflation gets involved. And I think, social media has done a great job of indoctrinating people into lifestyle inflation.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're given a direct line to comparison.
Right.
And you see someone who's half your age or your age. Allegedly making, millions of dollars. And sometimes that is very difficult to then be like, well, I'm making $50,000, for example. Am I a failure? Am I, less than? And that's a real conversation that people have with themselves. And it's not okay because, like you said, allegedly, a lot of people that throughout researching for this episode, we learned that about 41% of American workers earning between $300,000 and $500,000, so a lot of money, are living paycheck to paycheck. And about 40% of those making over $500,000 said that they're living paycheck to paycheck. And when you have this direct comparison on social media that someone is allegedly making their lifestyle look like they earn millions and millions of dollars, you actually never know what's going on behind the scenes.
Never.
They could be in crazy credit card debt. They could have a parent funding their entire lifestyle. They could have so many things.
You know when that gets exposed?
Tell me.
When somebody has an event like they die unexpectedly and the wife or the husband thinks we're in this certain position, and then they find out they're destitute.
Yeah.
So again, it comes back to commitment. It comes back to discipline. And it also comes back to just being smart about what you do. You just have to make decisions, and you don't have to be draconian. You just have to be committed to, okay, I need to put some money away so that in the event that something happens, I've got a little emergency fund. My retirement's funded. Because again, all money does is it gives you options. If you want to take your grandkids on a vacation because you did a great job saving, you can do that. If you want to have, 2 or 3 dogs, you can have 2 or 3 dogs.
You want a Rottweiler farm.
That's right.
You can fund it.
Exactly. So, and again, seeking out people that can help you to get where you want to go.
Yeah, I mean, I just love this idea of reframing your mindset to commitment, because I feel like that's something that our generation, my generation, not our,
all generations, people, commitment is like a dirty word now.
Yeah, and we struggle with it. You know, in all aspects of life, people struggle with commitment. And I think it's really important to recognize that commitment goes a long way, especially with budgeting. One of the ways that I think we can help people is this 30-day cash flow reset, which is some homework for our listeners. If you really want to get your budget under control, here is one of the ways that we think could potentially help you. So what I want to challenge you to do, and Dad, we do this, I feel like a lot with me.
Yep.
Because I always say, I don't understand how I'm spending this much because I don't know where it's going. It's not like I'm going to Aritzia and spending $1,000. It's like the $1,000 literally poofs out of my hands and I don't understand. So I want to challenge everyone to just review your last 30 days of spending. And I think one way that I've gone wrong with this in the past is I just look at one thing. So I'll review my credit card, but I won't look at my debit card. I won't look at my Apple Pay. You know, I won't look at the cash that was in my purse that's no longer there. So when you're reviewing your last 30 days, you're being honest with yourself and you're just observing. You're not being judgmental. You're not saying, oh, I wish I didn't go out to dinner. That dinner was lame. It wasn't worth it anyways. No, just observe everything that you spend for those last 30 days. Once you feel comfortable with that and you have observed your spending, then categorize these expenses. You know, see what money's going to rent or your mortgage, what money's going to transportation, food, entertainment, shopping. If you're paying yourself first, like you said, Dad, your savings. How much are you putting away for savings? And then for step 3, what we're going to challenge listeners to do is to find one leak. Choose one thing, because the goal isn't being perfect. The goal is to create awareness and to create a game plan on how you're going to tackle these difficult things. And budgeting, like we've said this entire episode, is difficult. It's hard. There's so many different factors that go into us not succeeding on this. So we just want your goal to be awareness. And then the final step is to redirect that money. So if you've noticed, for example, that HBO Max subscription that's $24 a month, and you're never using it, you're logging on once a year, for example, like the Fox one with the FIFA World Cup. You want to take that $24 and you want to redirect it towards something meaningful. So when we were talking about earlier with those people who really valued their cigarettes or their Starbucks, put that $24 towards the item that you want to keep, towards the thing that means the most to you. So for me, there's always my nails, because I like having my nails done. So if I was doing this, which I will do this 30-day reset as well. But take that $24 towards something that you do not want to get rid of in your budget. So it could be your nails. It could be investing if that's seriously super important to you. It could be paying down your debt or a future goal. If you want to buy a house, put that $24 a month towards that. And make sure that every dollar has a destination and that you decide where it goes. You control your budget. It doesn't control you.
And I just want to give a shout out to Todd for giving us this topic. And as always, if you guys have any questions, concerns, please feel free to reach out to us at podcast@mymoneyunwrapped.com, because we've gotten a lot of feedback from listeners and they've given us some great topics. And the whole idea of this is to address the topics that are of concern to you. And remember, we're here as a resource, and we just want to thank everybody for listening. I'm John Harrison, your co-host.
And I'm Jordan Harrison.
And this has been
Money Unwrapped. Securities offered through Silver Oak Securities, Inc., member FINRA, SIPC. Advisory services offered through Elevation Advisory Partners, LLC, a SEC registered investment advisor. Harrison Capital Management, Silver Oak Securities, and Elevation Advisory Partners are separate entities. This content is provided for informational and educational purposes only and should not be construed as investment, tax, or legal advice. The views expressed are general in nature and may not be appropriate for all individuals. Listeners should consult with a qualified financial professional before making any financial decisions. Past performance and examples discussed, if any, are not indicative of future results.